Yes, it's What a Boast, a celebration of Reeves and Mortimer. Please welcome your hosts for this podcast, MJ Price and Paula Wiseman.
Hello and welcome to Quite a Boast, a podcast dedicated to the work and genius of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer. My name is Matt Price, founder of the Reeves and Mortimer Depository of Curious Stuff Facebook group.
And I am Paula Wiseman, founder and creator of the Divine Comedians podcast.
Our guest today is nothing short of showbiz royalty. He arrived on the comedy scene as a stand-up and impressionist in the 1970s before finding fame as part of Russ Abbott's Madhouse team, where he met his comedy partner, the late great Dustin G. His career since has certainly been varied, from Ricky Gervais Extras to Coronation Street, from Celebrity Big Brother to Strictly Come Dancing, from the Addams Family musical to As You Like It. And of course, for 15 years, he was the host of Family Fortunes. He has also made some memorable appearances alongside Vic and Bob, and he even had a punch-up with one of them. Please enter the Novelty Island paddock, Les Dennis.
Hey!
Hello, you two. How are you doing?
Hey, Les, how are you? So
I'm
lovely
good.
to see you.
Good, thank you. You reminded me of all the things I've done there, which is
I
always forget a lot of them.
Was your career flashing before your eyes?
Yeah, well, I'm currently in a dressing room at the Opera House in Blackpool, which is great because I'm back where it all started. Me and Dustin did summer season at the North Pier, 20 weeks, twice nightly, in 1985, I think it was. Yeah, so, and I went back earlier than that, working with Russ Abbott in Blackpool as well. So it's great to be back and lovely to talk to you guys.
Oh, it's lovely for you to join us, Les. Yeah, let's go back to those early days. So your first, were you playing the working men's clubs before TV?
I did the working men's clubs while I was still at school, yeah. I've never had a proper job. I started doing the clubs while I was 16, I think I was. I did, and then did them. I was doing A-levels at the same time, trying to catch up with work at school and do the school plays as well with people that have gone on to do great things. Clive Barker, the horror writer, and Doug Bradley, who was Pinhead in the Hellraiser movies, and Jude Kelly, who went on to do great things in theatre as well.
Yeah.
Was that always was acting and comedy? I mean, sometimes they do go hand in hand, but how did it all come about? Obviously, that wasn't your plan.
No, I suppose when we were kids, we used to go to Butlins for our holidays. We used to do a week in Patelli in North Wales. And I went into the talent competition while I was there. I saw there was a variety show on one night, and there was an impressionist called Peter Kavanagh, and I'd never seen anything like it before. This guy was, putting on props, turning around and looking like the people he did. And when I think back, he was doing Field Marshal Montgomery and Jimmy Edwards from a show. As a kid, I loved a show called Wacko, where Jimmy Edwards played a headmaster, and he did these impressions. And I was like, wow, Mummy looks so like them. So I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be an impressionist. So that's how I started on the Butlins talent competition, doing my Norman Wisdom, who else did I do? I did Freddie Parrott Davis, who people might remember. He's still going, Freddie Davis, to this day.
Yeah, still going strong.
He's and amazing. He must be kind of in his mid-80s, but he's doing terrific work. And so that's how it started for me. And then I went on to the working men's clubs, and from there, summer seasons, and then here in Blackpool by the end of the 70s.
So was your first TV, was it you? Did you do Opportunity Knocks and New Faces?
I did Opportunity Knocks. That was my first one in 1971 when Huey Green was the compere of that. And in the days when if you voted for somebody, you had to send a postcard in.
Yeah.
you had to get a postcard in by Friday so that they could count the votes and then invite you back on the Saturday. I never made it back to the Saturday. I think I came, apparently, according to the producers who rang me on the Friday, Len Martin rang me and said, you came fourth. But I think he told everybody who came who didn't come in the top three. So I don't know where I came, but it was. I mean, that was a great start. And then New Faces was the big talent show for me, because I went on that and won with the viewers the first week, not with the panel. Tony Hatch was on the panel then, Mickey Most, the record producer. And I won with the viewers, came back, won with the viewers again. Then the third time, won with the panel, which was great. Tony Hatch gave me 9s and 10s, which was unheard of. He was like the Simon Cowell of his day. And then went on to the Big Winners show and lost that. But I was in good company with Victoria Wood. We both lost. So inauspicious starts, but that's how it got started for me.
Yeah, it's amazing that period. I mean, yourself, Victoria Wood, Lenny Henry, who are all on New Faces, late 70s, as kids, pretty much.
Yeah. A lot of people came out of New Faces. Yeah, a lot of stars came out. And out of Opportunity Knocks, of course, Les Dawson.
Yeah. I think the earliest I can remember, the earliest clip I've seen of you on TV, I probably can't remember it quite, was the Comedians.
Yes. Yeah. Again, there I was the youngest on the Comedians. I think I was about 20. And I remember the night, I was only ever on it once. I remember the night I recorded, and I had to go on last because all the other comics, Bernard Manning, Ken Goodwin, Jim Bowen, all these, well-established comedians on the show, they all had gigs to go to. So they put me on last, and I was watching them all do gags. Not that any of the gags that I was doing were their jokes anyway, because at 20, I wasn't doing, I never did do mother-in-law jokes or any of that stuff. But following those guys and going on and making it to the show was a bit of quite a feat.
Yeah, you're one of the only impressionists in that bunch as well, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. But I didn't do impressions in that show. I did just, I think 2 jokes made the Comedians.
Yeah.
But I did Who Do You Do at that time, which was the impressionist show. That was Freddie Starr's show, and that was great. And that's where I first met Dustin, in the studio, and he was a big star already. Dustin G, before he got any television exposure, was the kind of act that could do a week at the big cabaret clubs all over the country, just on reputation alone. A bit like the Mike Hardings and the Billy Connollys of their day. He had that. He had a reputation for being, you've got to see this guy.
Yeah, he was a force of nature, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
I think one of the earliest things I can remember on TV when I was little was Freddie Starr's Madhouse.
Yes,
which morphed into Russ Abbott's Madhouse because Russ was in Freddie Starr's team, wasn't he? I think.
Yeah, he was in the team with Freddie, the very first series, and then took over when it became Russ Abbott's Madhouse. Yeah, and I joined that about second season in of Russ's show. I didn't join until then because I did summer season here in Blackpool with Russ Abbott and the Black Abbots in 1979, and then when Russ went solo in 81. I did Torquay with him, and I became his comedy foil, and that's how I got into the Madhouse, because I was doing all the Teddy Boy routines and all the comedy sidekicks to him.
Yeah, Vince Prince, wasn't it? The table.
Vince Prince and the Tone Deafs. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, what memories do you have of working with Russ? I mean, he was a big name, wasn't he? I absolutely loved his stuff.
It was wonderful to be part of that team. I mean, the Madhouse team. Funnily enough, I just met Sherry Hewson because she lives locally here, and we caught up for a coffee this morning. And being part of that team, there was Sherry Hewson, there was Susie Blake, there was Michael Barrymore, Dustin G, myself, Bella Emberg, and Jeffrey Holland, and it was a remarkable group of people, and we all did all the sketches, all the songs, and it was great. It was like being part of a rep company. The sketches would come in at the beginning of the week; they'd be dished out to different people, and you'd learn them, and then you'd go to record on a Friday and Saturday, I think it was. You do all the stuff, all the big dance numbers and musical numbers on the Friday. and then on the Saturday you'd be in front of an audience doing the sketches. It was great. And then we went on tour. I remember, I can remember going to Glasgow, and Russ was huge then because of the See You Jimmy.
Yeah.
And people say, I bet Scots hate him, but they didn't hate him at all. And Russ was Scottish. That's what people didn't realise. His mother was Scottish. He was half Scottish, so he wasn't taking the mickey. He was being lovingly fond of those characters.
I mean, I think comedy history has been sort of been rewritten, as in the early 80s, alternative comedy came along and wiped everybody else off the map.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, the mainstream TV, Russ Abbott, or Little and Large, you still had Les Dawson and the two Ronnies and Brucey. They were huge. And it wasn't, you didn't disappear off the face of the earth. You saw more of you than you did of Rick and Aid and Alexi Sale on TV.
The viewing figures, though, the viewing figures back then, you were talking millions and, millions, whereas I suppose later on it would have been a lot less.
Yeah, I mean, there was only 4 channels then. I remember Family Fortunes at its height for me would get regularly 16 million viewers. People, I love the fact that people come up to me and say, you were part of my Saturday night. When we were getting ready to go out on a Saturday night, we would watch Family Fortunes and Blind Date back to back on a Saturday night. So it's great to be, to have been part of that great era of telly. I mean, it's still lovely now. I think there's still amazing comedy now, but like then, there's good and bad, and we remember the good rather than, all the stuff that wasn't so good.
So late 80s, early 90s, Vic and Bob appear on the scene.
Yes.
Do you remember seeing them as a viewer for the first time?
I watched and thought, this is hilarious straight away. I loved them. I thought, they were kind of like a modern day anarchic Morecambe and Wise. And I just loved George Dawes on the drums and all that stuff. I thought it was great. And when I was asked to do Shooting Stars, I jumped at the chance.
Yeah, the first one you did was it was like a VHS special.
It was,
Unviewed and Nude.
Yes.
Which was pretty much just an elongated version of the half-hour show, wasn't it? And without anything cut out.
Robbie Williams was on it. Yeah, I remember. Robbie was on it. Martin Clunes was on it. I remember that I had to do the big task at the end, and I had to put rotisserie chickens, or maybe Martin had to put them on my back as I went round on a rotating wheel. It's hilarious. Great fun. And Robbie Williams came up and said, "Can I have a photo with you?" I was like, "What? You're Robbie Williams?" But I had worked with Robbie's dad, Pete Conway, in the clubs, because I worked with all the dads. I worked with Robbie Williams' dad. I worked with Lee Evans' dad. All the dads. Max Beasley's dad, Maxton G. Beasley, who very kindly gave Max his name. He said, "You can have my name," and which was a great name, Max Beasley. His dad was a great impressionist in the early 80s.
Yeah, Robbie Williams had just left Take That, and that was when he was hanging out with the Gallaghers, and he was hitting the bottle, I think, and he was the bad boy.
Yeah. But in those days, that the set, I remember the set, and the director was Mark Mylod. Do you know Mark Mylod, now of Succession fame? And Mark had started as a runner on the Russ Abbott show and come through and has just gone on to great things. I remember him just saying, "Oh, you'll see the lads between takes have a drink." So the cans would come up from under the set, and they'd have a drink and then carry on. I think, is this what telly's become? But I loved it. Great. I thought I wish we had that when I started.
I watched it the other day just to remind myself. There's some very funny moments. They refer to you as Les Denis, the French fire engine.
Yeah, I still get that shouted at me now. I still get people who know that show call me Les Denis, the French fire engine. And it's a lovely thing to be known as.
And they used to do the impressions round, and of course it gets to you. And they sort of pushed you to do Mavis from Coronation Street. And then Bob says to Vic, "I told you," and he gives him a tenner.
That's great. Yeah. But I always loved what I loved about them, and I remember them being in an interview once, and they said, "Who don't you like in comedy?" There was that attitude that, you know, that there would be a war between alternate and traditional comedians.
Yeah.
And I remember Bob in the interview saying, I don't dislike anybody who gets up there, has the guts to get up and do this, which is it's the hardest business in show business, to be funny. I admire. So I love that. I love that he didn't ever, you know, have a go. I remember once going to a Christmas party. They obviously used to have a light entertainment Christmas party. And at the Christmas party, there was myself and all the Russ Abbott and Little and Large. I think the two Ronnies were all over one side. And over the other side of the room was Rick and Ben Elton and Aid and French and Saunders. And we were kind of divided. We were all in two different groups until the Kofi Annan of comedy, Barry Cryer, got us all together. And suddenly we all realised that we're all doing the same business. We had a lovely night. We all got on, and it was more of a media war, that thing at that time.
Oh man, to people of our generation though, that would have been heaven.
Yeah,
having those two groups.
Yeah, it was great. It was great fun.
But yeah, that's the thing with shooting stars. They'd have what you would call traditional mainstream performers, and they'd have pop stars and sports stars and big Hollywood stars, and they'd treat them all the same. They'd all get the mickey taken out of them.
Yeah, and Bob, I remember Bob one time saying, we'd always have somebody who was on the wane. But he didn't mean it unkindly.
I know, yeah. And the next thing you did was Bang Bang, It's Reeves and Mortimer in the club sketches.
Yeah. I remember that so fondly. I mean, I got asked to do it, and I turned up. I think I'd had to drive through the night and stay in some little hotel. Them saying we're doing this thing, and it's largely improvised. It's called The Club. Will you do it? And because I was a fan of theirs and I'd met them on the Shooting Stars, I thought, yes, please. I got there and just had the best day. Morwenna Banks playing a crazed Les Dennis fan. And I also remember the first scene. I think me and Vic in what would the character be? The American guy, Pinky John. We met outside the club, and he said, "Have we met before?" And I said to him, "I think we met in a club called Capers." And when we finished shooting, he just looked at me like, "Capers." He loved the name, and he just thought, "Where did that come from?" It must have been some club I'd worked in the 70s, some nightclub in Southend or something, Capers.
It's a very Vic and Bob name for a club, Capers. Yeah.
Got a flashback.
Yeah, well, Morwenna Banks just...
Oh, she's incredible, isn't she? She's
leaping
so
upon you.
Hilarious, jumping up and down on me. saying, tell me if it's up there, I'll give you the money myself. Yeah.
The Baron's Nightclub with... Tony Barron. Vic as Tony Barron.
Yeah, I can't remember where we filmed it. It might have been Southend, I don't know.
Yeah, they often did things down on the coast, down the south coast, so it could well have been, Right, okay, let's get to the big one. Boxing against Bob, the Sport Relief.
Sport Relief, yeah. This was
2002.
I have to say that when I got the phone call, I was a bit confused because Bob just called me and said, "Hiya, Les," and I said, "Hiya, Bob. It's lovely to talk to you." We chatted about stuff and said, "Do you remember when we did?" "Yeah." And he said, "Do you fancy a fight?" And I was like, "What?" And I thought, "What have I done to upset you?" And he told me he was doing this thing for Sport Relief, the boxing, and he'd been asked to who he wanted to fight, and he chose me. So I went, "Really? Well, okay. Well, you mean like a comedy fight? We'll just like run around and do a bit of Keystone Cops, Laurel and Hardy stuff, and make it funny." And he went, "No, we're proper. We're gonna fight." I said, "Well, how?" He said, "Well, we'll train for 5 weeks. 5 weeks. You'll train with Jim McDonnell, who was, I believe, the featherweight European champion at one time." And he said, "No, I'll train with Barry McGuigan. And then we'll go in a ring in front of the great and good of the comedy." And it was, when we got into the ring, it was like that LE party. All his lot over one side. Bobby Davro and Joe Pasquale, Darren Day all over my side.
Yeah, no, he's got Paul Whitehouse and Simon Day.
yeah, they're kind of... I remember I got the fittest I'd ever been. I trained for 5 weeks with Jim at the Cronk gym in North London, and trained every day. Did a couple of days, 3 rounds I remember, with some white collar boxers, and I had to go in. I had the head guard on, but nothing else. I had to do a 2-minute round with each of those white collar boxers. By the end of the 3rd round, I'd done 3 rounds, they'd all done 1. Yeah. And they knew what they were doing. I came out with a bloody nose and felt elated. Thought that was fantastic. I love that. Did a day's training with Frank Bruno, which was lovely.
Wow.
Dear Frank. And then we went in to the studio and they had built a boxing. It was like Madison Square Gardens. It was great. I think Johnny Vaughan was the compere.
Vic is dressed as Kinky John again, leading Bob into the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I picked the name, the Blonde Bombshell, or the Blonde
Bomber.
Oh, Blonde Bomber, yeah.
Yeah. And you had to have music, and I picked an odd one, which was You Gotta Get Away From Me. Gotcha, it was called. Yeah. Which was great to come into, and all the crowds. I mean, the adrenaline there, where you think, I'm going into a fight in front of all these people. I have no idea what I'm doing. Half an hour before we went out into the ring, Bob came into my dressing room. Sounds like Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront. Remember that night he came in my dressing room and said, "Kid, this ain't right." He came into my dressing room and he said, "Look, Les," he said, the adrenaline is going to be pumping when we get out there. Let's dance around in the first round. Just take it easy, and then, just let it build. And I went, okay. I went in, ding, ding, went into the middle of the ring thinking Bob wants us to dance around. He went, bang! I hit me right in the face. And I talk about shooting stars. I literally, and I can remember seeing stars and thinking, oh my God, he's just hit me in the face. And he said we were down around. So I got so angry. And so I went for it and did the 3 rounds. I think in the 2nd round, he ran away from me. And who was it? Steve Collins. Steve Collins, the ref, he came up to me. He said, "You stop punching him in the ass. And you stop running away. If he runs away, that's only his ass is there to punch." So it was.
Steve Collins is laughing throughout.
He is, absolutely. But we had a great time, and I was gutted to lose on I think on a split decision.
Yeah, I watched it again before this, and I think you were robbed, Les.
Well, you know what? Charlie Magri afterwards said to me, "You were robbed." Bob watched it back on telly and said, "Les, that was your fight. You were robbed." And one of the judges said, "Oh yeah, you were better, but I'm a big Bob fan." So he gave him the win. He gave him the win because he was a fan. Yeah, but great fond memories of that, and very fond of both Bob and Vic.
I was in an interview with Bob, and he said, "Why did you choose Les?" Because, well, in my mind, he was about the same stature as me, but when I met him in the flesh, he's a bit bigger than me.
Yeah, we were. It was good fun, and I think they did one afterwards. Ricky Gervais versus Grant Bovey.
That's right.
Yeah, I think Ricky won that one, but I think they then decided that it was dangerous for men over 40 going into a ring and hitting each other without much training. The BBC pulled out in the end.
Yeah, you did another Shooting Stars in the Will Self, Johnny Vegas era.
Oh, did I? Okay.
Yeah, you were with Johnny and Oriki with their team.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, because he definitely had a drink during the shows.
Johnny. Oh, Johnny's great. I remember him coming up to me at a party once, and he said, "I've just had to go to have a medical." I said, "What for?" He said, "Mortgage." I can't get a mortgage if I don't have a medical.
No, it's you and Johnny on Orika, and Will Self. It's Penny Smith and a guy called Alex Sibley, who was in Big Brother at the time. He's in in the other team. Yeah, not as memorable as the first.
Yeah. Where's he now?
The first one I particularly remember, but maybe I didn't have any challenges or anything to do in that second one.
No.
Did he get me to do Mavis again?
We haven't yet, Les.
No, we're waiting on that. We're waiting on that one.
But going back to Bang Bang briefly, obviously you're playing a version of yourself, which you also do in Extras.
Yes.
With Ricky Gervais. I mean, how do you approach that, playing yourself but not yourself?
Well, I think, you just kind of, when I got the script for Extras, I remember reading it and thinking, I've got to really go for this and not hold back. And not, I heard that there were some people that would say to Ricky and Stephen, look, can we tone that down? I'm not like that. I just thought, you know what, this is my chance to show I've got a sense of humor about all the stuff that have been written about me, about Les Miserables, Les Miserable, and, that I'd just come out of the Big Brother house and nothing, the phone wasn't ringing, and Ricky was giving me a chance to reinvent. And I thought, just go for it. And playing yourself is easily as complicated as playing a character, because you're playing, as Ricky and Stephen pitched it to me by saying, how do you fancy coming and playing a twisted, demented version of yourself? So that's what you're doing, but you just go for it. I mean, I love Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love the Larry Sanders shows, those shows. And when they were pitching it, they said, think that way. And I think that's what I decided to do with the original Bang Bang, the club edition. I haven't looked back at that. I must look back because I remember having such a good day. Yeah, Charlie Hickson was there as well, I think. Yeah.
You do look genuinely terrified. So it's superb acting.
What was the Big Brother experience like? I mean, that must have been pretty surreal.
When I did it, the Big Brother in those days, it was they hadn't had many celebrity ones. In fact, they'd had one celebrity one, which was the one where Jack D escaped. Remember? He escaped.
Comic relief one, yeah.
Yes.
It was a comic relief one. So it was under the guidance of Comic Relief and Richard Curtis. So, the one I did was the first one where Endemol were saying that they had all the editing rights and could do what they liked. And there were only 6 of us. We only went in for 10 days and we didn't get paid, or unless I was an idiot and the others were getting paid. But we didn't, we did it supposedly for charity. But, I've always been honest and said, I did it for a reboot because at that time, Family Fortunes had finished. There was I needed to be out there.
Yeah.
And I did it for a reboot. We went in for those, and you forget the cameras are there and you get on with it. And I came second to Mark Owen, the Sainted Mark Owen. When you think back, like Mark Owen was at a point in his career where he needed to do something like that, and you look at him now. Stu Perkins as well. So I did that for certain reasons and came out and got Piers Morgan saying, "Is this the most pathetic man in Britain?" on the front page of the Mirror, and that was the full headline of the day. So you don't know what you're doing in this career that's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, but in the end, Ricky called me, so it was fine, and you just get on and do it while you're in there. And I thought that talking to the chickens was comedy shtick. They thought I was having a breakdown and was summoning psychotherapists. But then again, look at the editing. One day Mark Owen was sat there with his guitar, and he was singing the Verve song, "The Drugs Don't Work," and I'm very suggestible. And a song goes into my head, it's there all day. And when it went out on TV, they didn't show Mark playing the guitar. So we had no context. We just had, as the credits rolled across at the end, me sat in the jacuzzi going, "'Cause the drugs don't work. They just make you worse." So that was what people thought I was having happen to me.
That's amazing you didn't get paid. I mean, the money they must get nowadays, and for social media stars and reality stars who go in there.
Yeah.
And for Piers Morgan, is of course somebody the most pathetic man.
I know. The ultimate irony.
Yeah, there you go.
And you're in, well, I don't know if you made the TV version, but it's definitely on the DVD extras of Monkey Trousers, the sketch show that Vic and Bob did.
Oh, I did the sketch show.
Yeah.
Yes, I did the sketch show. And I also, for Bob, did a big Christmas sketch show that had David Guest in. Do you remember that?
Was it the All-Star Impression show?
All-Star Impression show.
Vic and Bob aren't in it, are they? But...
Me and Bobby Davro in a jacuzzi doing Who Wants to Bath a Millionaire? I was Gary Barlow and he was Chris Tarrant in the weirdest, most surreal sketch that Bob absolutely loved. And yeah, the sketch show as well. I did a few episodes of that.
You did the Bob's brilliant character, the estate agent sketch.
Yes,
you were a couple, Reese Thomas.
Yeah,
you and him were a couple looking around this house.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember that. No, yeah. Reese was so good. Reese, what's he doing now?
Reese Thomas, he creates a lot of shows. He does the Dodger kids TV series Dodger.
Oh, okay.
He's behind that. And a lot of stuff on BBC Four and Brian Pern with Simon Day and things. He's very talented.
Yeah, very, very good performer as well. I loved doing those sketches with him as that couple.
How anyone keep a straight face when Bob's doing that estate agent character?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just I don't know to everything, every question you ask.
And I remember on that All-Star Impression show also doing Jasper Carrot, that game show he did. I did a spoof of that. And I think I was also Louis Walsh in a funny sketch, was like, I'm putting you through hell. When they're egging the people on to whether they've done well or not.
I think there was a period because they had their own production company, Vic and Bob, and they tried to do some more mainstream Saturday night ITV type shows.
Yeah.
And it's just because their stuff is so surreal. I think a lot of people didn't quite get it.
Yeah, it was all-star impressionists, and they had people like David Guest and Jerry Hall doing impressions of other people, and so again it was surreal and off the wall, but I loved it. I loved that night.
Like, talking about your impressionist side, did you have a process for getting voices? Was it just literally keep listening to something over and over again, getting little tonal things?
When I first started, Mike Yarwood was around. And, like every other impressionist, we all watched Mike and then took what Mike did and kind of copied it, until you develop your own style. You know? I always think that, I was never good enough to go to art school, but I could draw and paint and, did it up to A level. But I think that, being able to do a cartoon is the vocal version of that is the impression. It is an impression in the same way that a cartoon is an impression of somebody visually. Yeah. So I listened. I remember my big influence, as well as Mike Yarwood, was Sammy Davis Jr. When I was a kid, my mum got me an EP called Sammy Davis Jr. Impersonates. And I remember he did the song Sonny Boy, and it did impressions like Jimmy Stewart. Oh, 1 year old and grey, dear. Would you promise that you'll never stray, dear? Because I know that I got to have somebody, and I got you, Sonny Boy. That's why I did that at 17 in the talent competitions. Funny how you remember back, and Jerry Lewis singing Lulu's Back in Town. Sammy Davis Jr.'s impressions were extraordinary. Yeah. Frank Gorshin as well was the guy. Do you remember Frank Gorshin, who played the Riddler in the TV version, the TV version of Batman? And he was an incredible impressionist. Yeah.
But you're obviously you're best known probably for your Mavis. Your Mavis. I mean, how did that even come about? You starting to
You're gonna get me to do Mavis.
You have to. It's but how did that come about? How did you first?
It was really an interesting way, because in the Russ Abbott show, the TV show, there was he did a sketch. He used to do a character called Sid the Spiv. Remember Sid the Spiv, who was like a bit kind of Del Boy before Del Boy. He was like this East End market trader, and he did Sid the Spiv selling impressions. So he had a market stall, and under the barrow of fruit and veg, He said, right, today we're selling impressions. And under the barrel was myself, Dustin, Jeff Holland, and Michael Barrymore. And he would get the audience to shout out people they wanted us to do. And then we'd come up and do them. And some of them were set up because, Michael Barrymore did a great John Cleese. So they'd say, John Cleese, somebody shout John Cleese, and Michael would do his John Cleese, and Jeff Holland would get up and do his Stan Laurel. And then somebody shouted Vera from Coronation Street, and we all looked at each other, and there were a load of wigs, and Dustin found one, put one on, stood up and went, "Hey, you all right, kid?" Yeah. And it got a big reaction. And then he didn't know where to go because it was a new impression. He had no material with it. So I grabbed the wig and I came up and I went, "I don't really know." And it just, we could hear from the audience reaction something that just really connected.
Yeah.
And that was it. The next week, John K. Cooper, the producer, had written Vera and Mavis sketches in the pub. So part of the Madhouse Saturday night sketch show every week, there'd be Vera and Mavis in the pub. And I suppose that's where then Dustin and I started the double act from, because we realised that if we put together that you wouldn't expect, people together you wouldn't expect, it kind of worked. And I know you might think Vera and Mavis, well, they're both from Coronation Street. Yeah, they were, but they were never friends in Coronation Street.
Yeah.
No. Rita and Mavis you'd expect, and Vera and Ivy Tilsley you'd expect. We never put those two together. And then we thought, well, that's the way to go with our impression. So we put Bobby Ball and Billy Connolly together, Larry Grayson and Boy George, kind of like random impressions. And suddenly we got offered Panto with Russ, and we, as Ugly Sisters, we decided that we would. Our big scene was who are we going to go as, rather than what are we going to wear. So and it just connected, and suddenly we got offered our own TV show, and it just snowballed from there for 2 years before Dustin sadly died in 1986. So it was a whirlwind time, but a fantastic time, And it came. The Mavis came accidentally. Vera, Liz Dawn, and Thelma Barlow used to come and see us in Blackpool, used to come and watch the show. And I can remember Thelma saying, "I got a script the other day," and I thought, "That's not me, that's Les Dennis." And you can actually, somebody put on YouTube recently, there is a scene where Mavis is in the shop with Rita and another character, and she says, I don't know really," is what she says, but she does it. And you can see them all laugh, which is lovely.
Well, it must probably good. Luckily for you, when you joined Coronation Street, Thelma Barlow had long since retired from the show, because that would have been very sad.
Oh yeah, but she did come for some reason. She came one day, and I was in makeup with her, and we had a hug. It was lovely to see her. She's extraordinary. She's just done a movie.
Yeah,
and she's in her 90s. She's amazing.
Well, she was so great in Dinner Ladies. What a great! She's amazing. Yeah. But yeah, I think people now, if they hear that catchphrase, I think also Les Dennis catchphrase, they might not even remember who Mavis was.
Well, I think a lot of people then, it got a new lease of life from me doing it in extras. When I think we do it in the pub scenes, and of course the last scene in extras. So I was in bed with this woman in the scene at the end of extras, and Ricky had me say to her, "I don't really know." And she goes, "What?" And I was supposed to do it again. "I don't really know." And then she goes, "Get off me." But I said to Ricky at the rehearsals, I said, "How about if instead of repeating it, I say, if it's up there, I'll give you the money myself," which, again, is a throwback to the club. Yeah. And he said, "We're having that, but you're not getting a writing credit."
Because it was so big in America, Ricky Gervais' stuff, they must be completely baffled by that scene.
Yeah, I was working Panto, and the costume people had been over for some reason to talk with Woody Allen for something. other than Panto, clearly. And they asked Woody Allen's producer, have you any questions for us? And he said, yeah, Woody wants to know who's Les Dennis. Because he'd seen it and thought, who is that guy? What's that guy about? You know, but I suppose it worked on some level, because you know.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of Woody Allen in Panto now, Liz. No,
yeah.
God, he's made for Panto, isn't he? Really?
Yeah.
So, have you ever come back to Vic and Bob? Have you seen much of them since working with them?
No, I don't think I have. No. Oh, I did see Jim at one point, because he was telling me about how excited he was about going into Corrie. So that's whenever he went in. That's how long ago it is. And
nowadays, you're obviously busy doing a lot of musicals, a lot of stage work.
Yeah.
Seems to take up a lot of your time. Enjoying that?
Wasn't you said mentioned As You Like It. It was 12th Night.
Oh, was it? Oh,
yeah, 12th Night. I did Malvolio this year. God, it's going so fast. Which was exceptional fun, and I loved it. And I'm doing a lot more straight stuff as well now, which is great. Yeah, I'm about to do in Liverpool next year. I'm doing this play called Red or Dead, which is based on David Peace's book. He wrote The Damn United, and it's about Bill Shankly. And Peter Mullen is playing Bill Shankly. So
oh my God.
Very excited about that.
Oh, I'm tempted to make a trip for that one.
Yeah,
that's what I love though, Les. You're so versatile. Do you know what I mean? You literally dip in and out all different things.
Different things, even opera. A couple of years ago, did my first opera. Yeah.
Oh man.
So it means that, you know, look, I'm 71, I'm still doing it, and I need to be challenged if I am still doing it. I need to do something that makes me learn, and I'm just looking forward to the masterclass of watching Peter Mullen and being on stage with him and acting with him. It's going to be quite an incredible show. It's done as a passion play. And we will have a community cast of 50 people on stage at the Royal Court in Liverpool. Imagine them all singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" with Bill Shankly there.
We want to see.
It's gonna be a great show.
Thanks so much for joining us, Les. That was quite a boast.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat with you.
I enjoyed it.
You were robbed in that boxing match.
Guess what? I do really know.
I don't really care.
I do know.
Rematch.
Yeah, we need the rematch.
Yes, absolutely. We'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you all for listening to this edition of Quite a Boast. Special thanks to Matt Lucas for permission to use the Peanuts music as our theme tune, and thanks to Ed Lewis for this edit. Thank you to Jake Chesham for permission to use the photo from his 1995 shoot of Jim and Bob in our various online locations for the podcast. And of course, thank you very much to Jim Moyer and Bob Mortimer, without whom this podcast, well, it just wouldn't exist, would it? Remember to check out Paula's Divine Comedians podcast as well, and to join the Reeves Mortimer Depository of Curious Stuff Facebook group. And I think you'll agree that really was a lot of fun. Goodbye.